meatballs with some mozzarella in them, spaghetti, and salad with a homemade dressing, and bake up a sourdough loaf. This loaf that we're going to be baking up is a rosemary, black pepper, and garlic loaf, which I think will be delicious because I'm going to make a bougie little dipping oil for it. Because there's like a restaurant here called Macaroni's, which my mom loves to call Marconi's, just because she's like, I can't believe a restaurant would be called Macaroni's. But they give this really good, delicious bread with that. Just spread my little flour over, trim it off. Oh, and this is a slightly bigger loaf because I decided that my small loaf sourdough more often wasn't yielding me enough grilled cheeses. So I've kind of converted back to my big loaves. Let's give this guy a nice big score here. And then we'll just give him a really simple one. And then we're going to pop him in our Dutch oven that is nice and toasty. Slide this guy in there. He's going to be like snug as a bug in a rug. So we've got our bread in our toasty oven, and now we're going to pop this in our oven, and we're going to bake this at 500 degrees for 20 minutes, and then we'll turn the temperature down to 450 and bake for another 20 minutes at 450. So I'm going to get this in here. And we'll set the timer for 20 minutes at 500 degrees. And while we're working on that, little Loki over there, we can start making our meatballs and get those ready so they can go off. I'm also going to make some homemade croutons to go with our salad that will pop in as well. But let's get our meatballs ready. We're just going to do a simple, my classic Italian meatball, which is my favorite for this. And we're going to start with 2 slices of bread because I've got about 2 pounds of meat. Well, 2, and apparently I took a little edge with me. We're going to drizzle them each with about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of cream, enough to get them, soggy but not dripping in cream. Now, if you want to sub in half and half or milk for this, you'll use a little bit less. Cream's a little bit thicker, so it takes a little bit more to make it nice and soggy. But again, enough to where it's all kind of dripping full of it, but not too much to where you're going to make your meatball batter kind of base too liquidy. Then we're going to add in 2 eggs. So 1 for each pound because we're making our base panade here. Ooh, that egg shell is very, very thin. So funny, the eggshells I was cracking earlier in the week were like super thick eggshells, and these are like very, very thin. Give my hands a quick rinse.
You have another convert to doing meatballs this way.
Oh, good. You've got to try it. I will say the panade really makes such a moist and tender meatball that isn't spongy. It is just, it's the way I was taught, and I just love it, and I think it's so delicious. We're going to add in some onion powder, about, I'm going to say like a half a tablespoon here. You know what? I've got like nothing left in there, so we're going to put a little bit more in there. And then we are going to add in some Italian seasoning. This is just Mrs. Dash's Italian medley, but it's essentially Italian seasoning blend. I like this one because it's a little bit finer ground than the basic one. And we're going to do about a tablespoon of this because I really want that flavor to be popping. And then we're going to add in about a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt. And this will be the base to our panade here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through with our hands and we're going to squeeze that egg mixture through and that milk and cream through the bread with all those spices until we have a nice paste formed. And that's why it's really important not to use too much cream because You want it to be a good thick binding paste. If it's too runny, it's not going to hold your meatballs well. And we're going to squeeze through. Make sure you break up. You're going to want to use, again, for this, a nice soft bread. Sourdough, crusty Italian, they don't quite work because the crust is just too tough on it, and it doesn't dissolve or get smushy, I should say, in time. I mean, I guess you could always soak it for a good while beforehand, but who has the patience for that? And now we've got our meat base here. We're going to add in a pound of Italian sausage and roughly a pound of ground beef. I've got a smidge more, but that doesn't make too much of a difference. So Italian sausage in. And I like to use a nice mild Italian sausage, but you could definitely go with spicy or sweet, whatever one you like.
Can you go over what's in your panade?
Yes, so we have 2 slices of bread soaked in about 2 tablespoons of cream and 2 eggs. And then we added in about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt, and about 2 teaspoons of onion powder. And now we're going to work this through with our hands until we've got it fairly well mixed up in there. And then we'll add in some grated mozzarella cheese so that there's some nice little cheesy bits in our meatballs, which is just a fun way to change these guys up. Now, one little tip for when you're making meatballs, just set your meat out like 5-10 minutes before you're ready to use it, because meat straight out of the fridge is very, very cold, and it's hard to smush it together with your hands. And then we're just going to kind of work it through until that whole panade, which has all of our seasonings, is mixed throughout. And this really ensures that your meatballs are well seasoned throughout. You know, you don't get any kind of just a big spot of area that has the spices. It's all throughout. And you'll know when they're mixed together because Italian sausage and ground beef have 2 different colors, the meats. Once you have like one kind of basic color where the kind of the pinks and the reds have mixed together, that's when you know that they're well mixed.
Is your meatloaf recipe the same?
Similar. I use different spices for it, but yes, I make a panade in there, but again, slightly different spices in it for it. And then, of course, kind of top it off with either barbecue sauce or homemade barbecue sauce and ketchup here. We're going to be using this whole bag of cheese in here. So it's about 2 cups of shredded mozzarella, and we're going to mix it in. Just going to snip away with my kitchen shears to open it up. You're going to want to use a good mozzarella cheese because it just melts a little bit better for this. This is some Land O'Lakes, but I do love that, and the thicker cut ones for it.
And what kind of meat are you using?
We have a little over a pound of ground beef and a pound of mild Italian sausage. And now we're going to work in our cheese and kind of incorporate that so that you'll have just nice little cheesy bites inside our meatballs, which on the outside, they kind of crisp up and are wonderful, but inside they're like little gooey strings that are so delicious. You could also use Parmesan cheese as well for this. We'll mix them around until they're fully incorporated so that you have like mozzarella in every bite. And I will say the cheese also helps keep your meatballs really, really tender as well. Okay, looks pretty good. Now we can start shaping up these guys for this. So we're gonna get a ball. I'm not gonna do my jumbo ones. Sometimes I make my jumbo meatballs, which were always a hit. There's this restaurant in Minneapolis that my stepdad always talks about how he used to go there. It was called Dinopoli's, and he would get his spaghetti and meatballs there, and it's just like one giant meatball on your plate for it. And so I used to always make him like a giant meatball on there, but now I just kind of make these ones because they're just a little bit easier to eat.
Rondia sent you.
Well, thank you, Rondia. We appreciate that.
You got lots of comments about the apron.
Oh, thank you. This is one of the ones that I got for my birthday. Kind of picked out a nice little florally print because I realized I do not have any like pattern type aprons. I did get a Yellowstone one, which I really, really love, but most of my aprons are like a solid color to it. And I was like, you know what? We need a little spice up our life in here. So, and I feel like it's kind of, me wishing the nice warmer weather on. And, this week we're supposed to have up in the 70s a couple of days, which I'm very, very happy for because we had a dumpster delivered day and we have our big kind of spring cleaning. We've got to get rid of some of our, appliances that went kaput over the ice storm. But it's one of those things where we're like, kids, everybody, you need to clean out your room and you need to find a bag of clothes or junk to toss, a bag of clothes to donate, just kind of get through everything and do a nice little spring cleaning for it. Right? Every couple of years we do this where it always amazes me how much kind of junk you kind of collect over the years. Even though I've been really like 2 years ago, I said I was going to stop buying as much like little things or, things and try to live more minimalistic in like the materialistic world based things. And so, but you still collect stuff and then baby stuff and things that are the kids have outgrown. And it's like so much stuff. You're out there like, where does it come from? Where does it come from? And I'm like, I know I bought it, but it's one of those things it's like been working on. It's like a goal because my younger years, I really enjoy shopping. It was a little bit of, retail therapy. I feel like, everybody loves that, but trying to get better with it throughout the years. I realized how much of an issue was when we were clearing out our attic upstairs. And there was so much stuff that I was like, why did I save this? Or why do we have this? We'll never use it on there. Get these last little ones rolled out and then we can drop our noodles in to have those start cooking up. And we'll start working on the little vegetable base to our spaghetti and meatballs. As you can see, 2 pounds of meat yields quite a bit of meatballs. And then when you add that cheese in there, it just increases the volume for it, but it makes a good amount. This is one of the meals that I make that we have a good amount of leftovers of, but I always send, food to my parents. And this is my stepdad's like favorite thing. He loves spaghetti and meatballs. And this is a meal that I know that both Torrin and Evie will be like, can I have this in my lunch tomorrow? So I always make a big amount of spaghetti and meatballs because it is always such a simple, but it's a hit. When we were driving back from soccer practice tonight, and Evie was like, what's for dinner tonight? And I knew she'd be so excited when I told her spaghetti and meatballs.
Oh, what kind of cheese is in the meatballs?
So we have mozzarella cheese in here, although you could also sub in Parmesan cheese if you wanted to. For it, mozzarella gives you more of a, a melt in it. So when you get the cheesy, that'd be a bit more creamier, but Parmesan it's a little bit denser. Okay, let me go wash my hands over here because they have been thoroughly meatified. And then we won't pop these in until we're ready for the second kind of bake on the sourdough at 450 because you don't want them to get overheated, but they don't take very long to cook up. Okay, one more good scrub down. Unfortunately, with meatballs, there's no other way to really shape them up and get them without getting your hands dirty. But we at least have them, and I think, what is this? So 5, 10, 15. We have 30 meatballs. So good amount. Slide this guy right over here so that we'll be ready to put them in. And then let's get our croutons ready so that we can pop these in for our salad. Because earlier today we made roast beef and cheddar melts. And I just have the smallest amount of sourdough bread left. But this will make the best croutons. But before we do that, I want to get my onion sauteing up there so we can get a start on this. And let's drop our noodles in. I'm going to turn it up. Once it comes to a nice big boil, we'll drop our noodles in. Okay, we're going to dice up my onion. This is like a little itty bitty baby guy, but I want to dice them up pretty small because I find that when I kind of sneak in some veggies into the spaghetti, if I dice them up small, the kids don't really notice them. So it's just another way to kind of get them in there. And you'll get the nice flavor through the caramelization. It adds just a really good little bit. So I'll do some thin slices, and then I'll kind of do almost like a little bit bigger than a mince. But that way they can caramelize up and get some great flavor. So first one. And this is a tiny, tiny guy. If you have a bigger one, you probably just need about half of an onion for it. And then I'm just going to do a couple mince overs. And then we'll get this starting to caramelize up, add a nice little richness to our sauce. And let's get our noodles in here. We have our water boiling here. We're going to do good old spaghetti today. And I am not a very patient person when it comes to waiting for my spaghetti noodles to drop down. So unfortunately, I do break mine. And I do not apologize. I do, but I don't. It's just, you know what? I have little children, and if you leave a long noodle in there, they could choke on it. And it's really a safety precaution is what I keep telling myself that. But really, it's because I don't want to wait until they sink down under and stir. Getting them completely submerged under the water at one time allows them to cook more evenly. I'm not going to salt my water today because I'm not going to be reserving any of my pasta water for this sauce because it is a marinara sauce versus a cream sauce or like a lighter sauce that I would use the stocky or like the starchy water for. But let's give this a good stir around because we don't want any of those noodles to cling to each other. There we go. We'll have that boiling up here. Let's get the teeny little bit of sourdough bread that I have left over into some croutons. And this is just our classic traditional sourdough bread, but we're just going to slice it thin and then we're going to cube it up. We'll toss it with some spices, some oil, and then we'll cook it up in the oven for about 10 minutes or so, enough for it to get a little bit crispy. It will come out and it will be softer, but once it cools, it will have a good crunch to it. But it's just a great thing you can do with leftover sourdough bread.
You have a question. Do you have a cookbook?
I am in the process of working on a cookbook. So that is kind of my goal, and I'm hoping by the end of March to have it ready for it. Worked a little bit on it today, but I've kind of got a good start. I've got a lot of recipes ready, and it's just in that formatting and plugging in and making sure it meets all of the pretty little design elements that I like. But that's my lofty goal. We do kind of post all of our lives, so we have kind of like a digital cookbook where everybody can always watch and recreate any of these recipes by watching our videos. And then for our members, I do send out some recipe cards a couple times a month. We'll be having a recipe card drop soon on there for our next kind of 3 recipe cards that were coming out.
And where will your cookbook be available?
It'll be available on Amazon, and we'll be able to do the paperback and like the Kindle version of it for that. So like that, because Kindle's great, and some people love the whole tactile of the book, and I'm like one of those that I have some great cookbooks that I've had forever because I learned to cook back in the day when you had cookbooks before everything was online, and I just love a good cookbook. Get our onions toasting up here. We've got our croutons, and you see that little heel of that sourdough bread is going to make just the perfect amount of croutons for our salad. We're going to give these a nice little drizzle of olive oil. You're not going to need a whole lot, there's a small amount, but you need enough to kind of coat each one up with, that, and then we'll squeeze it together to get that crisp up. We're going to sprinkle some Italian seasoning on here because you want to flavor it up, and then some garlic salt. This garlic salt really makes them pop. So we've got them coated here. And I will say, these are great just for, on your salad, but both my daughter, like Evie and I, we love these as just like a snack. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but they're so good. They're just like a really great little thing that you can just munch on, especially if you need that little crunchy for it. We'll spread these out. And that way, when we're ready to put our meatballs in here in a little bit, we'll have those ready. And I'll slide this guy over here. Let's get a little spatula for our, we'll do some tongs. Get our onions here, moving and grooving. And now I'm cooking this in my 6-quart saute pan, which is actually going to heat up and cook the onions a little bit faster than with a non-stick pan. So you got to just make sure you keep an eye out on it because you don't want to burn them on there. I'm going to turn, now that my pan's hot, down to about a 4 because it also conducts heat a lot faster. And then we're going to mince up some garlic on here. And let's turn this down just a smidge. And then we'll get our sweet pepper kind of diced up. I'm going to save some for our salad, but then some is going to go into our sauce as well because we're just going to have a couple onions, garlic, some of the sweet bell pepper, and some zucchini in our spaghetti sauce. And zucchini, I think, is a great addition for a vegetable that doesn't really change the flavor profile of a spaghetti sauce because it really is very bland, but it soaks up all of your sauce and juiciness for it. So it makes it really, really delicious. Okay, let's get this garlic in. And then we're going to go take our lid off of our sourdough. Let's give this guy a quick little stir because he's got a good strong boil. And then I'm going to slide these guys down here because we'll be popping these in just a second. Well, let's get this out first. So we have these baking at 500 degrees. Gotta get my little alligators on. And we're going to take the lid off. We'll turn the temperature down to 450 and we'll bake at 450 for about 20 minutes. Here is our gorgeous loaf. This is my rosemary, black pepper, and garlic loaf, which I'm trying to kind of imitate the flavor of this bread that you get at this Italian restaurant, which is so good. Slide this guy in here. And then I'm going to get my meatballs and my croutons. And we're going to bring this temperature down to 450. And opening up our oven doors will have allowed our oven to cool off a little bit before we got there. So it's already down. Perfect. And now 20 minutes. So while that bakes up, we're going to take our meatballs out in about 10 minutes and with our croutons as well because they don't need to cook as long because it is a higher temperature and you don't want your meatballs to overbake. So 52, we'll get those out. I'm going to taste or check on my noodles. They've been in for about 8 or so minutes. So we'll check and see if they're ready. They might need a little bit more. Yeah, not even. You can just tell by how they bent on the spoon that they weren't ready yet. Give our garlic and our onions a quick little toss here. Let that toast up and we'll get our peppers going on here. Kind of pop this little guy out. And then we're going to kind of de-seed it. And we'll get these guys sliced up. I'm going to make some nice smaller kind of dicing on our peppers for our sauce. Again, smaller little bits. We'll add that nice little, fresh bell pepper flavor to it, but not too different on changing the texture. get these guys diced up nicely. We got those. And then for our salad, I'm going to do a slightly thicker cut and a slightly bigger dice on it because we don't need them that small for our salad. Slide these guys and just drop them into our salad bowl. That way we can have them to the side. Let me get this guy out of my way.
You have a question? If you didn't make meatballs, would you put meat in the sauce?
You know, that's one of the funny things. So growing up, that is exactly how I ate spaghetti, was with meat sauce, and it was typically just ground beef. And I would say I started making meatballs probably like 15 years ago because I wanted, I don't even know why I was like, but I loved meatballs, and it always seemed like, oh, you just got meatballs when you went to a restaurant or whatnot. And they're really easy to make. And it's just a kind of a great way to elevate it up on there without doing too much, more work with it. So, although I've had some requests for my son to do a meat sauce with meatballs. So I might do that one time. Now, if I were to do a meat sauce, I would probably stick with it being ground beef because I do think Italian sausage on its own can be a bit strong for it. And that ground beef meat sauce is always, it's just that classic. Okay, let's get our peppers in here. And we'll get these tossing up. And kind of just coat them here with our little tongs. There we go. And just give it a little stir around. Then we're going to let these cook up for just a second. And then we're going to get our zucchini in here. And it's just a small little guy. He's not very big, but adds a little bit of extra. Zucchini was on sale this week, and so we already made some zucchini muffins, and we had them with our little little pockets that we made the other day. So I love a good zucchini. I'm going to dice them up a little bit smaller. So again, it's more, little bits of it, little cubes.
You have a question? Are the different colored peppers, do they have different tastes?
Yes, they do. So I will say red, orange, and yellow are all very similar in flavor, but green bell peppers are a bit more bitter than the red, yellow, and orange, which is typically why green bell peppers are the cheapest at the grocery store and red, yellow, and orange are more expensive. So I personally don't care for green bell peppers, but I love the red and yellow orange because they are more mild. I prefer a sweet pepper over bell peppers, which are the smaller little ones, but bell peppers are a little bit easier to kind of cut up for it. But there is a flavor difference to it. And I like that. And so it's one of those things, that's one of those few things that I'm like, I'll splurge on the more expensive peppers because I think it has a better flavor. Let's get these guys in. It's not like the purple and the white carrots where there's very little difference. Yeah, give it a good toss around. We're going to let these kind of cook up here for just a second, and then we're going to add a little bit of spice to it, and we'll get our sauce kind of simmering. Check, make sure, see how our noodles are. Still like another minute or so. I like to cook mine right at al dente or a smidge before because I put my noodles in my sauce, which means it's going to soak up all of that delicious juices in there. So you don't want to cook them, overcook them. Let's get our salad made. We're going to make up our dressing. I'm going to pop these to the side so I can put them on top. You don't want to cut for me. Here we are. So we've got some romaine lettuce, which is one of my favorite lettuces for just a basic salad on here. Now, most of the time I buy the heads of it, but these were on sale. And so, you know me, I don't pass up a good sale for it. But I find that just the head of romaine lettuce, it lasts a lot longer than the ones. You could tell this one got a little frosty out in my freezer, but still good.
Can you go over what's in your meatball?
Yes, so my meatballs, I start by making a panade, which is made from egg, bread, and cream. And then I added an Italian seasoning, garlic, salt, and onion powder for the base of it. Mix all that together, and then a pound of ground beef and a pound of Italian sausage. Mix it all together, and then for today, we did a little twist on it, and we added in about 2 cups of mozzarella cheese to have a lovely kind of a mozzarella meatball, which is delicious. So we have that as a little twist for it. I'm going to take my noodles here. We're going to just pop them in my strainer over here. And then I'm just going to let them sit there. Don't toss them with oil or anything like that. When you toss your noodles with oil, it creates this kind of protective barrier on it, which, yes, they don't stick together, but it prevents them from soaking up that good flavor. So you really want them to really get the soak in there, bring in those flavors. It just makes them nicer and better. So don't do that. When you toss them in the sauce, even though they're stuck together, they will come apart in about 30 seconds. It doesn't take long.
Where did you get your apron?
I got this as a Headley and Bennett apron. So I got it for my birthday, and it got this one, and then I got a mystery box, which is where you don't know what you're getting in a random. But I loved all my mystery ones, and this little fun one for it, because I will say I love aprons. I have a lot of them, but I cook a lot, and I find that I am not the cleanest of cooks. I'm a messier cook, and my aprons get pretty messy. So they can typically get 1 or 2 wears out of them before they need to go into the wash. So it's nice to have a good assortment of them. And I like to be, when there's holidays or whatnot, I like to be themed. So I have some fun color ones that kind of match. We're going to grab some tomatoes. Give these a quick rinse. And then we'll add them into our salad. And then we're going to make a lovely salad dressing. We're going to do kind of a creamy Italian dressing on this, but I just want to get these tossed. And before we add in our marinara sauce, we're going to actually add in some spices to season up our vegetables so they have great flavor on it, especially the zucchini. So get a little sprinkle over, about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And this will add a little extra boost to the sauce. And then about, a half a teaspoon or so of garlic salt. You don't need too much. We're going to coat these up and let them really get touched with the spices here. And there we go. Mix it around. We don't want to let it cook too long because we don't want those spices to burn onto the bottom of our pan, but about a minute or so, and then we'll get some sauce in there to kind of cook up for it. But let's get our salad dressing made. But first, it's been 10 minutes, so let's go grab our meatballs out and our croutons, and we'll have those, and we can sneak a little peek at our sourdough. Okay. We got our beautiful croutons here, tossed up and lovely, and our meatballs. Now, when you get your croutons out of the oven, they're going to be a little bit soft at first, but once they cool down, they're going to firm up. So don't just sit there and be like, oh, they're not crispy yet. They will crisp up. You just need to let them cool, and then that kind of causes the crust to kind of harden up for it. Pop these on here and let them cool for a second. These are our lovely meatballs. We have that mozzarella cheese kind of oozing out of each meatball, but they're made of Italian sausage, ground beef, and our Italian seasonings in there for lovely panade. And then we've got our crispy homemade sourdough croutons that we tossed up with Italian seasoning and garlic salt and a little bit of olive oil, which we'll be using on our salad tonight. We'll let them cool before we add them in there. That allows them to get a nice crunchy base to them. Let's get this a stir. Cook up just a minute longer. Let's get our creamy vinaigrette going here. I'm going to grab a spoon. We're going to add a spoonful or 2 of mayo. And this is going to help make our dressing go from like a regular Italian vinaigrette to a creamy one. Just this little bit of mayo brings you that richness to it. And I find it works better than using actual cream or whatnot. We're going to use a little bit of white wine vinaigrette. Just about, we're going to do about a tablespoon or two, 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to add in some olive oil, about 2 tablespoons. So essentially we've got 2 tablespoons of each base, 2 tablespoons of oil, 2 tablespoons of mayo, and about 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And then we're going to season this up. We're going to use some Italian seasoning, about a teaspoon, a little shake of garlic salt.
Oh, you have a question? 10 minutes for the meatballs, was that regular oven setting or air fry?
It was on regular oven setting, but my oven was at 450 because of the sourdough. You could also cook them at a lower temperature. If you wanted to cook them at 400 for about 12 to 15 minutes or 350 for about 15 to 20 minutes. Either one works. I always have whatever else is cooking in my oven kind of dictate, because the meatballs are pretty, they can go with the flow. They're not picky, not like baked goods. Okay, let's get our sauce in here, and then we'll shake up our dressing in just a second. But I want to get this going. I'm going to use 1 jar of vodka sauce and 1 jar of marinara. Now, I love Rayo's sauce. I think it's pretty delicious, and that's as close as you can get to homemade. And just for the ease of it, I always say I recommend that if you haven't found a spaghetti sauce that you love, just every time you go to the store, grab a couple different jars and try it, and when you make it, until you land on what your flavor profile likes the best. Because I felt like growing up, there was like 2 brands. It was like Prego and Ragu. Those were like the 2 spaghetti brands out there. But now there's about 1,000,001, and they all have different flavors, and everybody has different flavor profiles. But once you find one that you love, that will be able to ease your cooking on weeknights when you don't have as much time. And if you're like me and you kind of sometimes struggle opening the jars, put a little butter knife in there on the lid, separate it, and pop a little air pocket. We're going to do a nice one. We have a big family, so we're using 2 of the really big jars for it. But this combination of these 2, the marinara and the vodka, is my favorite kind of combination, because you get a little bit of that creaminess from one, but then you get the the nice tomatoey base for it. Plus, I added in our vegetables and our sauce. Okay, close this guy up. Give our creamy vinaigrette a little bit of a shake here. And then I'll give it a little try to make sure we've got all the right ratios. Perfect. Yeah. I might do a smidge more vinegar. Sometimes when the mayo displaces, it doesn't quite get the exact amount in there, but I want a little bit more tang. Now, you could always sub in balsamic vinaigrette or, different types of vinegars to give you slightly different flavors. Perfect. So we've got our creamy Italian vinaigrette here. Woo, made a mess. And now, before we add in our noodles and stuff like that, we're going to tuck in our meatballs here into our sauce in just a second to kind of get them up. And then let's check on our croutons, see if they've crisped up firmly. Perfect. Here, when I tap on it, you can hear you've got that nice crunchiness of a crouton. We're going to add those to our salad, and they will have so much flavor and a nice lovely crisp, but they'll still be a little bit chewy on the inside. So they've got crunch and they've got a lovely chewiness, which just makes them so good. And I will say they are just delicious. Evie, my girls are they love a crouton. They believe a salad must always have croutons in it. And I believe that their ratio is for every leaf of lettuce they eat, they need a crouton with it. So it's more like a crouton salad than anything. Okay. Let's get this guy. We're going to get these meatballs tucked in here. Then we will stir in our noodles, and then we're going to make a lovely kind of herby oil to dip our sourdough bread in.
Monica sent you.
Well, thank you, Monica. We appreciate that. I'm going to take my meatballs. Now these, you see all that lovely white cheese oozing out. These are my mozzarella meatballs. So they have a good bit of cheese in there with that Italian sausage and ground beef. And we season them up with onion powder, garlic, salt, and Italian seasoning. And of course, they're made with a lovely panade, which keeps them nice and tender and moist. And they won't be spongy like you would get with a breadcrumb base. But you can just see as I pull them up, the cheese is just like oozing out. So delicious. It's just a fun way to change up your meatball. I always like to do them so much because, you know, I'm not one to like to repeat meals often. I've got my staples that my kids get me to make, but I always like to change it up. And this is just a great way to take your base recipe and give it a little pizzazz. We're going to coat these guys up into our sauce.
And can you go over what's in the meatballs one more time?
Yes. So we started off with a panade using 2 slices of bread, 2 eggs, and about 2 tablespoons of cream. And then we added in about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, a teaspoon and a half of garlic salt, and about 2 teaspoons of onion powder. Mix all of that up, and then we added in a pound of Italian sausage and a pound of ground beef. Mix those well until everything was well and incorporated. And then we added in our mozzarella, and we have about 2 cups of shredded mozzarella in here. So here is our pasta noodles. We're going to toss these into the sauce. That way they will soak up all of the flavor. You want to cook your noodles to right at al dente or a smidge before so they have ample room to absorb all of that tomato juice to make that flavor wonderful.
D-Mac, sent you.
Well, thank you, D-Mac. We appreciate that. So I toss it here. I feel like the conventional 90s knowledge was that you served your noodles and your sauce separate. But what happens in your leftovers noodles is they turn into a sticky mess. And you know what? If you toss them together, your noodles will taste better, your spaghetti will taste better, and it is amazing the next day.
How were the peanut butter bars?
We have yet to cut into them. We're going to have them with dessert tonight. So I'm actually going to bring them out here and show you them because they needed to sit and solidify. And then I was thinking about giving them to the afternoon snack, but I had to run off really early. We started our outdoor soccer practices and I leave at like 4:30 and I don't get back until 7:30. It's a long, long day. But I have them in there. I'll grab them out in just a second here. But look at our beautiful spaghetti. I'm going to turn this down to a very, very low setting so it can simmer for this last little bit. And then we're going to make a little jazzy oil dish to dip our sourdough bread in. But guess what? It's about to beep, so why don't we go grab it first, and then we'll do that. And then I'll grab our awesome peanut butter bars out. Put that on. So here is the second part of our sourdough where we baked at 450 for about 20 minutes. And look at that gorgeous little peak there. We'll pop it out and then we'll let it kind of steam out for the rest of it. Looking amazing. And this is a rosemary, black pepper, and garlic loaf. We really got a good expansion on it.
Yeah, glad you have your oven back.
I am so glad I have my oven back as well.
Do you make dessert every day?
Not every single day. I make it a couple of times a week. A lot of times I will make muffins or scones that I use in the kids' lunches, as well as, you know, cookies and stuff like that. So today was more of a desserty base for it, but it changes up on there. But I always like to make little treats that kind of replace some of the snacks that you would buy at a store regularly to go on lunches or have a little treat at the end of the day because my kids are pretty active kids. But look at this beautiful, gorgeous, look at that peak on there. Amazing. Here's our cute little scoring on there with it. And then I like to take it out right away so that you keep that perfect golden crust, because those Dutch ovens continue to stay hot and they will keep cooking the bottom. And that's when you can get that really hard crust on the bottom. Okay, let's make this a jazzy little oil base for it so we can dip that in. Grab a little bit of Parmesan cheese and our seasonings for it, because I love to dip my bread. Well, I love butter on my bread, but I also love oil on my bread. You're going to use, there are differences in the different types of olive oil you use. So for this one, I'm going to use one that's designed for salad dressings or for dipping in bread, versus one that has a kind of slightly different flavor, which is better for cooking and sauteing. We're going to make it just a little base of olive oil on here. And then we're going to kind of keep our spices pretty simple. I'm going to use a little bit of Italian seasoning here. Sprinkle that around, not too much for it. And then I have some rosemary, which is going to go with the rosemary that is in my bread. And I do love a good rosemary. Nice little sprinkle. And again, you don't need to go super strong because dried spices have a whole lot of flavor. And then you're going to use a little bit of pepper, and pepper is going to give you a great thing. Apparently, when I say a little, I grab too much, but don't worry, I've got my little pepper shaker over here that I needed to refill anyways. Oh yeah, that's what I meant, bowl things, same difference. And then because we all love garlic salt, a little sprinkle of garlic salt around. And then we're going to just top it with a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese, so that you have it in there, but it will be perfect for kind of dipping in our bread once it cools. Now, my kids, what they always like to do is they really like lop up all the Parmesan, and then they're like, we need more in there. I'm getting my Parmesan cheese is getting down to the time where I need to get another one. So, good amount. And the Parmesan cheese will add a nice little saltiness and texture to it, but this is just going to be delicious. Beautiful. No, I'm
Someone brought it up the other day.
Mine.
Down like 10 meals.
I know, it lasts forever. He tried to get a cheese tax, and I'm like, no cheese tax for you. Not with my Parmesan cheese. If I run out of that, our daughters will be very, very upset because I don't have any more Parmesan cheese. Here we go. So this is our beautiful oil on there that we have seasoned up for our sourdough for dipping into it. On there, we're going to serve up in just a second. Let me grab our peanut butter bars out of the fridge because we have them. They are set and cooled. And for those of you who weren't with us during our kind of crazy lunchtime stream, but these are my Lunch Lady peanut butter bars with, they're like those classic ones, but their base is made with creamy peanut butter, powdered sugar, butter, graham cracker crumbs, and then we melt chocolate and peanut butter together on top. And they should be nice and set, so we're going to cut nice in here. That peanut butter on the top is not going to be super firm, but has a little bit of a softness to it. Chocolate, that's what I meant. And then the first one is always the hardest to get up, guys. But put that base back on here. This stuff tastes like a Reese's peanut butter cup. So good, so delicious. Mine. It's my favorite. I have no resistance to this. So good. It's going to be my dessert. It will be eaten before dessert, but who says you have to have dessert last? Okay, let's get ready to serve up our dinner here because we've got quite the feast. Pop this out of the way. And let's grab a plate. Now, I won't cut into my sourdough yet because you need to let it, this is a big loaf, so it needs closer to 10 minutes to steam off versus the smaller ones, you can go a little bit less. But you want to make sure, it's one of those resist the temptation. Hot bread's amazing. It will still be hot in 10, 15, 20 minutes. Just wait, because if you cut into it too soon, you're going to have a gummy bread. Let's start with We'll start with our noodles, then we'll do our salad. We've got our delicious spaghetti here. So we're going to make a nice little bundle of noodles here. We have a nice mixture of marinara and vodka sauce. And then these are our mozzarella Italian sausage and beef meatballs that, hiding away, going to roll away on me. And then with the nice thing is you have that really wonderful flavor of that cheese and the Italian sausage in there. And then we're going to serve it with our kind of our garden salad here with our sweet peppers, our homemade sourdough croutons. Grab a couple of those on top. And then we'll drizzle it with our creamy Italian vinaigrette that we made up here using white wine vinegar, mayo, olive oil, Italian seasoning, and garlic salt. And then we'll serve it with a slice of our Italian or our rosemary, black pepper, and garlic sourdough bread with our lovely oil things. And then, of course, for dessert, the children will have the delicious peanut butter bars, which are so good, so good. Well, guys, thank you guys for joining me here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos into the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, like our homemade meatballs and our dressing and stuff like that, you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my all-clad 6-quart pan, my knives, cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.